Bergara Rifles, portable barricades, chassis systems, and pistol-mounted reflex sights. This week on Mail Call Mondays. Mail Call Mondays is brought to you by Modular Driven Technologies. If you need a chassis system for your precision rifle, check out mdttac.com. This is John McQuay with 8541 Tactical, and this is Mail Call Mondays, the show that answers your questions about precision rifles, optics, and equipment. Welcome to another Mail Call Mondays, and our first question this Monday comes from Cameron. And Cameron asks, what are your thoughts on the Bergara Rifles, specifically the B14 HMR, BMP, and the LRPs? Do you have any plans to work with them in the near future? Love the show. Keep up the great work. Well, Cameron, we actually got to shoot the Bergara Rifles again at the SHOT Show Industry Day at the range, and it reinforces my opinion that those rifles offer a very good value for the money that you're investing in them. They really, even the lower end, the HMR, offers a fiberglass stock, already has a magazine system in it. They have calibers that are competition ready, or that are actually competitive in PRS style competition. They have fairly good triggers. The action is fairly smooth. So altogether, it's a really nice package, and I've enjoyed shooting them every chance that I've gotten to. I've not had a chance to sit down and actually do a full accuracy review on them, though, and we have been in contact with the importer for Bergara Rifles. They are made in Spain, but there is a U.S. importer for them, and we're going to see about trying to get one in to actually work with and see how well they work overall. We have seen quite a few of them show up at several matches out there. I just haven't had a chance to actually test them in a controlled environment. I've got to shoot them in several different demo type environments where I'm banging steel, and haven't had any problems with running the gun or getting on target. But that definitely does not allow me to really come out with a detailed opinion on them. So far, I haven't seen anything that throws up any red flags or anything that would concern me about the quality or the performance of the rifles. So I think overall they look like a very good package. I just have to wait until I actually can get my hands on them before I can fully endorse those rifles for beginning shooters, or even for guys that have been in competition for a while and just don't want to spend a ton of money on a competition rifle. Our next question comes from Austin, and Austin says, could you doodle up or describe a barricade design to build at home and practice with? Chairs and ladders are getting a bit too familiar and would like to hear ideas for training. Thanks in advance. Thank you for your service, and hope you're feeling 100% or close to it. Well, Austin, I have kicked the bug that was kicking my butt after SHOT Show. I seem to be back to almost 100%. So thank you very much for your concern. Now, on the barricade design thing, really, I don't have to do this because the 6.5 guys have already done so. They had a whole write-up on a portable, foldable, reconfigurable barricade that you can build at home and then take out to the range. So we're going to go ahead and drop a link down in the description below so that you can check out their information on how to build a barricade at home. I understand that at some point you shot a ladder in just about every way that you think you can. You've shot a chair in just about every way you think you can. So this hopefully will give you something a little bit extra. But for those of you guys that don't have barricades at the range, don't think that you have to have a barricade to get in good practice. Like Austin said, ladders and chairs will give you a great deal to practice on until you feel very, very confident with those different levels. So get out there and play with that. Now, for me, I don't mess with a lot of foldable, portable barricades because we do have barricades that are available at my home range that I can go drag out, and they are really a pain in the butt to try to transport in a vehicle unless you have a truck with an open bed, because they're made. We have one that's made by 1x and another one is 2x, and they're not foldable. They don't break down, so they're pretty big and bulky, but they're great to shoot off of. So I haven't looked into setting up a portable or foldable design because I just really don't need it. So definitely check out the 6.5 Guys foldable Barricade setup, and let me know what you think. If you guys have some better ideas, or if you guys have anything written up or directed to where you have built a barricade, please leave a comment down below. I'd love to see what you guys are using for barricades. Our next question comes from Darren, and Darren asks, what are the real differences between all the chassis systems out there? With such a wide variety in cost and features, do we get the same improvement in accuracy regardless of which one we select? Well, Darren, that's a little bit of a difficult question to answer. I'll hone in really quick on your accuracy portion of the question. If a chassis is built correctly, that means when you go to the bottom end chassis, you're not just getting one that's thrown together and injection molded and all kinds of nonsense. If it's built correctly, then you really won't see a vast accuracy difference between the least expensive chassis and the most expensive chassis on the market. Your accuracy really comes from your action and your barrel, and no matter which chassis you drop it into, that can only perform to a certain level. Now, the job of the chassis is to, first of all, allow that barrel in action to perform to its mechanical peak, but then secondly, the important part of the chassis is to attach that barrel in action to your body. And that is really where we get into all these different form factors and why the price differences are all over the map, is because of the features that the chassis system uses to attach that barrel to action to your body. Now, of course, there are lesser considerations such as magazine systems and optics mounting and all this stuff, but the main root of it is how you attach that chassis to your body. And I grabbed 3 of them here real quick just to talk about. So when we talk about one of the higher end systems, this is the Remington 700 long range in a modular driven technologies ESS chassis. So this is more of an AR style setup. It has AR type pistol grips, and you can utilize a attachment point that allows you to use whatever AR-15 style buttstock you want. Now, obviously, I have the MDT skeleton stock on here, which is my preference. I feel that this is a very good setup the way it is, which is why this rifle is set up this way. But you can set it up however you wish. So this chassis is a good option for guys that like those AR-15 style ergonomics, but still want some of the configurable options up here. And we do have that tubular handguard, so you can mount things in front of the optic on this bridge if you wish. You have M-LOK interface, so you can mount all kinds of accessories. And when we start talking about accessories and different adjustments, that's where the price point starts to increase. And of course, this one does utilize an Accuracy International type magazine system. This is a long action Magnum, so it does have a different magazine, but most of the chassis systems out there, I tend to try to select ones that will utilize AICS magazines when we're talking about short action competition rifles. AICS is the most prevalent magazine system out there. It can be adapted to a wide variety of cartridge styles, so that's really what I tend to look at. Now, if we go to the absolute opposite end of the spectrum, we have the Magpul Hunter 700. Now, this is a really inexpensive chassis system, and I do consider this more of a chassis system than just of a stock, because it does have a full aluminum bedding block in here, so your receiver should bolt right in without need for any kind of bedding or any kind of other stuff. You don't need any gunsmith services, you just bolt it right in. It does come ready for a regular hinged floor plate that would come with most of your Remington 700s, but you just pop this little spacer out and you can buy the Magpul magazine system, which does run AICS pattern magazines, and bolt it right in, and then you're ready to go. Now, this is a great option for guys that prefer more of a traditional feel. So you have more of a sweep to the pistol grip. You have a standard type comb here. You do have spacers to extend the length of pull should you need it, and of course different combs to set the comb height to wherever you need it. But overall, it's a relatively inexpensive design that works very well. And the accuracy difference that we have found with the Hunter 700 versus a fully bedded fiberglass stock is pretty much none. It's within my accuracy potential. It's within the accuracy potential of the ammunition that I'm using. So it's a really good overall option if you need to go for that really low price point. Now we'll look at one slightly different chassis system out here. This is a Kinetic Research Group Whiskey 3 chassis. Now what you get when you step up to this, obviously this is considerably more expensive than the Hunter 700. It's a similar kind of layout. You still have this beaver tail type forend. The pistol grip is almost completely vertical. You can see the front end of the pistol grip is almost straight up and down. And you have thumb ramps back here, so it gives you a little bit more of that traditional feel. Like the Hunter 700, it's got little divots that you can float your thumb same side, but it brings your wrist a little bit more vertical in alignment. Now where we really get into the money on this guy is this is a folding chassis, so you do have a button here that you can push and you can fold the chassis down. So it's easier to transport. It's a little bit shorter if you're putting it in a scabbard on your back. And then, of course, we have fully adjustable toolless adjustments here. So we have cam locks here that allow you to adjust the length of pull. We have a thumb wheel here to adjust the cheek riser. You can move the cheek riser fore and aft. You can flip it around. You can do all kinds of things to this to dial it in. You can adjust the height of the butt pad. Just a ton of adjustment in this chassis system. So all of that stuff bumps that cost up. Again, it's got the AICS pattern magazine system, and you have all kinds of threaded holes on the bottom of the forend here, so you can adjust it however you want to set this chassis system up. Now this is one of the older Whiskey 3s. I believe this is a Gen 2 Whiskey 3. So it is one of the older chassis systems, but it's very similar to what the current Whiskey 3 is. Just a little bit of different design in the buttstock and a little bit different forend detail. So that is one of the things that is the main consideration for the price difference in the chassis, is the adjustments and then also the accessories that they add onto it. So you don't have to go to a top-end chassis system to get an accurate chassis system, but if you want all the bells and whistles, then that's going to raise the price. So I hope that kind of answers your question on the differences between the top end and the low end and why chassis systems tend to be more expensive than others. Our next question from Brandon is, when reloading 308 subsonic, do I need to worry about gas bleeding around the case neck in a bolt action? I'm getting around 1,035 foot per second with 9.5 grains of Trail Boss and 175 SMK. I'm seeing some carbon buildup on the outside of the neck, but none on the shoulder. Well, Brandon, I wouldn't worry too much about that little bit of extra soot on the neck. What's happening is with subsonic loads, you really don't have as much pressure to expand the brass to create a really good seal in the chamber. But as long as it's not coming past that shoulder, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Now, if you're getting soot down the shoulder and down the body of the case, I would start worrying about it. I would start taking a closer look at what's going on in that cartridge. Now, you talked about using the 175 SMK, and I know this isn't part of your question, but generally I recommend going with a heavier bullet in subsonic 308s. You can get up to the 200, 220 grain round nose bullets, and I think you'll find that you'll get better performance. You'll get better terminal energy on them, because when we're loading subsonic ammo, we have that speed limit that we're trying to stay at. So lighter bullet or heavier bullet, we're still not going to be able to push it past that speed limit and stay subsonic. So you might as well throw a heavier bullet and stay at that speed limit. Also, what you'll tend to find is the round nose flat base bullets will stabilize better subsonic. So with 1 in 10 twist, which is pretty common with 308s, you'll notice that they will stabilize better than regular boat tail hollow point bullet, which will tend to tumble a little bit more. And sometimes it really depends on the individual rifle, but that's just something I would suggest. Look at some of those heavier bullets, but don't worry about that soot around the neck unless it starts to get pretty extreme. Our next question comes from Joe, and Joe asks, I've seen you utilize the reflex sights on your different Glocks. Is there one specific you'd gravitate to buying if you could only have one for general purpose? Training, duty, concealed carry, or competition? Well, Joe, I have used quite a few different ones, but the one that I have on my carry gun right now, and the one that I would probably have on my duty pistol if optics were authorized, is the Trijicon RMR. Now, this is one of the original RMRs. This is an RM01. It has the 3.25 MOA dot, and this is the automatic brightness model, so there are no buttons or switches or anything on it. And that's kind of one of the things that I like about it, is the simplicity. There's nothing to remember to turn on. You don't have to remember to turn anything off. It's always on, so as soon as you put the battery in, it's good to go. And that's kind of what I want in a concealed carry pistol or a defensive pistol. I want to just be able to grab it, and I want the sights to already be on. I don't want to have to fiddle with anything. And that's kind of what you get with iron sights. With your iron sights, they're always on. There's nothing you have to do to prepare the sighting system to get ready for use. So the RMO1, or the automatic brightness models of Trijicon, some people don't like them because the brightness can, anytime you're allowing a machine to decide something for you, it has to make some compromises. And so what you'll find is occasionally the dot will wash out on the automatic brightness models when you're using a weapon light. Now, in practical situations, I really haven't found it to be a problem. I can set up situations where the dot does wash out. For instance, if I put a X300U on here and then I walk into a white painted bathroom and fire up that weapon light, well, the dot will dial down its brightness while the weapon light is off. And then as soon as I turn the weapon light on, that dot is still at its low brightness, and it takes a little while to ramp the brightness back up. So the weapon light will wash the dot out. With something like the Enforce APLC, that doesn't really seem to be a problem. Even when I've taken it out of the lockbox where it's been sitting all night long, and I do my function check on the gun and make sure that the sight is powered on, the dot comes up quick. It's no problem at all. I can still see the dot. So for me, the automatic brightness is not that big of a deal. I do have suppressor height iron sights on here. These are just regular Mariglow suppressor sights. So if it's ever a situation where the dot isn't immediately visible, the iron sights are, and I can rock on with the iron sights. So this has just been my preference. Now, the next RMR I buy, I will buy one of the adjustable brightness models just to see how I like the difference. Most of the guys will buy adjustable brightness, and they will set the brightness at an intermediate level so that dot is always at the same brightness level. And on my carbine optics, I kind of find myself doing the same thing. I'll set it at an intermediate brightness level that is just bright enough in bright daylight, but not too bright if I go in somewhere in the dark. And since I'm running both eyes open most of the time, even if the dot is too bright for a dark condition, as soon as I fire up the weapon light, it's really not going to be. So I think the automatic brightness or the adjustable brightness really comes down to a personal preference. But as far as all of the different sights that I've messed with so far, all the different reflex sights, I think the Trijicon offers the best balance of durability of features. It does have some drawbacks. For instance, I don't like the tinting on the window. I wish the window was just clear. I don't like the fact that the window tends to be smaller than other options. There are some other handgun optics that I've used that have a larger, brighter window, so it's really easier to see through them. But those tend to sacrifice a little bit of durability for that larger window as well. So again, I think the Trijicon is the best all around. I like the sight adjustment settings on it. I like the fact that it uses click type adjustment settings. They are set up so I can use the head of a cartridge to get down into the screw blade and adjust it. so I don't have to have any tools if I need to make a sight adjustment. And I like the fact that they've got written right on the sight. 1 click equals 1 MOA, and they've got the notches, and they've got an arrow, and it's marked up on the side, and it's marked right on the right hand side, so you know instantly looking at the sight adjustments what you're doing, and it makes things a little bit easier. Some of the other sights I've worked with, they just have holes for Allen keys, and there are no real markings on it. There are no click detents, and it makes sighting the pistol in a little bit more fiddly. Not a big deal, because if you have iron sights, generally you'll just adjust the dot to ride on the top of the front sight post when you're sighting through the iron sights. So again, not a big deal, but it's just a little bit nicer. Now we do have this RMR mounted on a Glock MOS, so it does have the multi-optic slide plate that goes in here, and some people in the past have lamented about the slide plates coming loose. I haven't had that problem yet, and this has been a daily carry for quite some time now. I've probably got a couple thousand rounds through this handgun. But what I did is used green Loctite to basically glue the slide plate to the slide, and then use blue Loctite on the screws holding the slide plate on, and then blue Loctite on the screws holding the RMR on. And it does have the specific Glock MOS plate between the RMR and the MOS slide plate. Trijicon actually makes a basically looks like a piece of spring steel designed specifically to mount the RMR to that plate, and so I do have that in there as well to seal up the battery compartment and to seal up the optic. So I haven't had any problems with it. It's worked really well, and I'm a big fan of this sight so far. Now, I have not shot any of the new SIG Handgun Optics, and I have limited experience with the Leupold Delta Point. So we have to kind of put things in perspective there. I've shot the Burris, Shield RMS, and quite a few others, and this just is the one that I keep coming back to. I will probably end up buying another for another optics equipped handgun that I have laying around here. So I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea there. There is a lot of personal preference in these, just like there's a lot of personal preference in rifle scopes, but this one has worked very well for me so far, and I think it'll work very well going forward. I don't have any reason to replace it on this handgun. For those of you guys that I know are going to ask, this is our Glock from Danger Close Armament. They went through and they really did an awesome job on this with the slide machining, with the grip stippling. We've got a couple of videos where we go over everything here, and I'm getting ready to do my kind of final opinion on how well this handgun has worked for me overall. So stay tuned for that. And our last question today comes from Jeffrey, and Jeffrey asks, do you choreograph an NRL 22 stage beforehand, right before you shoot the stage, a week before you see the COF? Also, this month we had odd distances for the 22 match. Do you hold or dial for 35? Well, Jeffrey, the January match I didn't get a chance to shoot because we were down in SHOT Show when the local club ran the NRL 22 match. The next week is when our February match will be run here locally, so I haven't shot that yet. To broadly answer your question, though, usually what I'll do is when the Course of Fire comes out, and I haven't even looked at the February Course of Fire yet, I will look at the Course of Fire and I will see if there's anything that I haven't really practiced or that I'm not really comfortable with, and then I will take that, I will go out to the range, and I will set up a very similar stage to that. It may not be the exact stage, but very similar to it, and I will shoot through that and just practice it so I'm familiar with the movement between the different positions, or with the drawbacks or the stability that is necessary for the specific position outlined in the Course of Fire. Now, when it's game day, when it's actually the day of the match, I don't do any pre-gaming, no pre-staging, none of that. I just show up. When it's my turn to shoot, I go shoot on the clock, and then we're done. I think that is at a club level, if you start allowing anyone to go up and set up on the barricade to test it out or to move in the different positions, then you're kind of in a position where you have to allow everyone to do it. And if you allow everyone to do it, you pretty much just doubled the amount of time that it's going to take you to run a match. And I run into these situations very frequently where I have to shoot a match and then go to work as soon as the match is done. So I greatly appreciate speed and efficiency when we're shooting a match. So I don't know that I would really be a big fan of everybody going up and trying out the stage and trying to choreograph their moves on the stage right before they actually shoot the stage. Now, the one place where I have a difference of opinion in that is that if you have someone who has some physical disabilities or physical limitations, then it's a great idea to let them go up and see how they would be able to attack the stage before they actually go, because you may have to make some modifications to allow them to actually shoot the stage and do so in a safe and comfortable manner. So that I'm absolutely fine with, but for everyone to go through and do it, I don't think that's the greatest idea. Now, as far as dialing or holding, I don't recall specifically the stage that you're referencing, but the way I generally decide if I'm going to dial or if I'm going to hold is that if I have to engage multiple targets, if I would have to dial multiple times, forward and back, then I'm just going to hold. For me, it's more accurate. It is less chance of screwing something up, and it's a time saver as well. I'm not breaking position to go up and dial the scope. If it is something where I am going to move from, say, a close target to a far target and then stay on that far target, so maybe I'm going to shoot 5 rounds close in and then move out and then shoot 5 rounds further out, well, then I'm probably going to dial. It's going to depend upon the specific barricade and the specific position, but I'm probably going to dial on that. And if I'm going to stay at a yard line for the whole stage, I will probably dial as well. That's just a strategy that seems to work for me. There are some matches where I'll go through the whole match and I won't touch the dial at all. I'll leave the turret zeroed out for the whole thing. But for NRL, I tend to dial for each yard line unless we are moving between yard lines. And if we're moving between yard lines, I use the criteria I just outlined as to figure out if I'm going to dial or if I'm going to hold. So I hope that answers your question there. And that's going to do it for this Mail Call Mondays. I'm kind of cramming to try to get this episode out. It's going to be published late this week because we're actually replacing our main editing system, and that's caused a few drawbacks. So hopefully we won't have any issues with getting this out, because this will be the first episode that is edited on our new 5K iMac. We didn't go with the iMac Pro. That's just a little bit too much cash. But we went with a topped out 5K iMac that should allow me to edit a little bit more efficiently than our old MacBook Pro. So we'll see how it goes. If you guys have liked the episode, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments over anything we've covered, make sure you leave them in the comments section below or send them to us on Facebook or Twitter. If you guys are listening to us on your favorite podcast app, first of all, thank you. Second of all, you can send an email to us at 8541tactical@gmail.com with any questions that you have. And until next time, get out and shoot.